Good afternoon and welcome to the panel about Genesis. Genesis is jointly run by the BIS Innovation Hub and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. And in Genesis, we are exploring tokenization of government green bonds for retail using DLT. Now, I have with me on stage the key players which have made Project Genesis possible. So let me give a brief introduction to them. Left of me, you have Kenneth, who is the head of market development at the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. As such, he oversees efforts to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness as an international financial center, covering areas such as sustainable and green finance and capital markets. Next to Kenneth, you have Qian. Karen is a Business Development Associate Director at Digital Asset in charge of capital markets. Now, having worked with Karen over a long period on Project Genesis, let me share a personal fact about her with you. So she met her husband through online dating, which fundamentally changed her view of how technology can bring great benefits to the world. And I can certainly sympathize with that because I met my wife the same way. Then on the screen on the outside, you see Gwak. So Aaron manages the capital markets business for ASEAN at Standard Chartered, and he is also the lead for intrapreneur venture with SC Ventures called Liberty, one of the vendors that has worked on a prototype. Now, a personal fact about Aaron is that despite being a Korean living in Singapore, Aaron has lived in Ghana for the longest stretch of his life, 17 years. This diverse upbringing made him passionate about social and financial inclusivity. So Aaron is a man on a mission, and it's great to have him on Project Genesis. And then on the second screen next to Karen, we have Dave Sandor. He is the co-founder and CEO of Allinfra, which builds technology in ESG. Dave is now based in Australia, but prior to relocating this year, he spent 14 years in Hong Kong in capital markets. Now, a personal fact about Dave is that he told me his biggest fear, which are long par fours. So the golf players among you will know that those are the most difficult holes to play. So it's great to have such an optimist with us also on Project Genesis. All right, so let's dive right into the discussion with the first question to all my panelists. So you all have been involved in Project Genesis. In your opinion, what is the most game-changing idea that has been explored in Project Genesis? Let's start with you, Aaron.
Well, thank you very much for having me. And again, I think the most game-changing idea explored in Project Genesis, which in fact is also the foundation of my venture, is the ability for technology to really radically reduce minimum denomination for entry into government bonds. And also allow direct P2P or peer-to-peer exchanges in bonds. And I think this is really the essence of what I was really intrigued to see happen through Project Genesis and hope to see more of going forward as well.
Thanks, Aaron. Next, Kenneth.
Yep. Thanks, Marcel, and it's a pleasure to be here. To us, as a potential issuer, Project Genesis has two important breakthroughs. The first is really that it reaches to retail. So traditionally, bond issuance has always mainly been about institutional issuance, whereas this one, we try to reduce the minimum denomination. We also try to make it more liquid so that retail investor could actually access that. So that's one important breakthrough for us. The other one, obviously, is green. This one, in Project Genesis, incorporate factors such as real-time reporting, real-time impact reporting, so that it could address issues such as greenwashing, where people are not sure whether the bond that they invest into are really investing in green causes and really have the impact that they claim they have. So yeah, retail and green are the really two important factors to us.
Thanks a lot, Kenneth. Next, let's turn to Karen.
I will echo Kenneth. Green and retail are definitely the key concepts. We have more than just one concept. The digital asset and GFT team together have deployed 3 key concepts for Project Genesis. First for us is tokenization and green traceability. Second is about retail level of visibility. And the third one is about not just one golden source of truth. We have deployed on multiple blockchains and how the multiple blockchains can come together. If I can elaborate a little bit about the tokenization. Tokenization for us is not just about digital representation of securities. After all, securities have been paperless for years already. It's about using smart contract to capture the life cycle events, and also together with Allinfra to capture green data natively on the securities, on the tokenized securities itself. So what that allows is, we are going to show a video very soon, that within a few clicks, you can see the green impact on applications such as Octopus. On the third point, we think there is a great technology achievement here, that we allow for multiple golden source of truth and interconnect a few blockchains together. And it's the first time in the industry that synchronization among blockchains are achieved.
Thanks a lot, Karen. And then let's turn to Dave.
So, the small ticket size, I think, is something that is really groundbreaking. To make this sort of product available to the retail investor is something that's fantastic. And then to integrate data and making that data, or making it available at a relatively granular level, I think is a new level of transparency, particularly in the fixed income market. So both of those things, I think, are groundbreaking on this project, and it's been wonderful to be a part of it.
All right, thank you. So after having provided your insights on the most game-changing idea, I would like to turn to our first key participant, which is our cooperation partner, the HKMA, to discuss the central role of distributed ledger technology in Genesis. So one of our prototypes is built on public blockchain technology, and the other one is built on a permissioned private blockchain. So we are seeing massive innovation taking place in the DLT space. Now, Kenneth, you're a central banker, and you come from the market development side. So you clearly have an interest in this innovation that is going on. Yet, as a central banker, you also need to have an eye on stability, on consumer protection. So what's your take on distributed ledger technology? Do you see DLT playing a more important role in financial markets in the future?
Yes, we do. When we do this Genesis project, we noticed that there are a few benefits that could potentially be of wider applicability. The first one is the faster issuance process. So typically, if you do a bond issuance, it takes 2 to 3 days to settle. Whereas with DLT, you could, in theory, do instant DVP settlement. So that's really a great breakthrough. The second advantage is automation. So with DLT, securitized tokens are basically programmable. So you end up being able to do automated settlement, automated corporate events, dividend or interest payment, as well as compliance with regulations. So all these could potentially save a lot of cost and labor. And then there is also the transparency element, where we have a single source of information in corporate ownership, green impact, et cetera, and the ledger is immutable, is accurate and reliable. So all these we see are great advantages of DLT that could potentially be of wider applicability. We do, however, see a few issues when we try to apply DLT to other areas. One is about business case. So I talk about the advantages of DLT, but at the same time, all the quote-unquote slacks or inefficiency embedded in previous system. For example, the settlement time that I mentioned. Over the years, people actually develop business process as well as potentially safeguard into it. So for example, the 2 days settlement period could actually be used to correct errors. So when we have atomic settlement, these errors, any error could potentially cascade and expand. So this is something that we have to think about. And then there is implementation. We all know that to reap the greatest advantages from tokenization, DLT, we need to move everything on-chain. So say, for example, we need potentially central bank digital currency in order to fully capture the benefit from Project Genesis. So whether we can coordinate this wholesale migration to the chain is something that we really have to think about.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. So I understand it's not a panacea, it's promising, but one needs to have certain things in play to use all the efficiencies that theoretically could be raised. Next, let us turn to our first team that has provided one of our prototypes, namely Team Liberty Shareable Asset. So they have set up a prototype for Project Genesis, which is built on public blockchain infrastructure. And before turning to Aaron with specific questions, let's have a video which gives a high-level overview on the Genesis prototype from Team Liberty Shareable Asset.
Did you know that 1/3 of all adults are unbanked? That's 1.7 billion people around the world. And that the safest asset any citizen can invest in are inaccessible by most, especially in emerging economies. One of the biggest issues in our financial system today is that it wasn't built for the average Joe. But Liberty is here to level the playing field. Liberty is on a mission to make government bonds more accessible to retail investors through a secured digital financial ecosystem. Liberty will be the platform that extracts the best aspects of blockchain technologies to directly connect citizens with the government and allow any citizen to buy the nation's safest asset. Anyone can now save and grow their savings with improved retail investor experience and a quicker turnaround, leveraging traceability of assets and transactions on the blockchain and allowing peer-to-peer exchanges. All at your fingertips. But that's just the beginning. The Liberty prototype for Project Genesis is innovated and designed in conjunction with the BIS Innovation Hub, Hong Kong, to help residents take direct ownership in Hong Kong's green future. Retail investors can not only directly purchase the green bonds in minimal denominations, but also check their contributions live and measure their real-time impact on Hong Kong's environmentally friendly and sustainable growth. Within this secured financial network, and with the ability to exchange bonds peer-to-peer, the possibilities are limitless. By making it easy for citizens to save and grow their wealth while contributing directly to the nation's future, the social impact Liberty will have is undeniable. By increasing accessibility and breaking down existing barriers for wider bond adoption, Liberty hopes to become a medium for greater economic inclusion and sustainable growth. Liberty will be a true democratizer for your nation's financial system.
Now, that is some impressive technology that you have produced, Aaron. So, you have built the Genesis prototype on public blockchain infrastructure. Why did you make that choice? And second, can you provide the key benefits that you see provided by your Genesis prototype?
Sure, thank you very much. I think there may be two kind of factors around choosing to use a public chain infrastructure. And the first is more of a philosophical approach, where the idea of trying to connect issuers directly with retail investors is essentially an aim to disintermediate and to directly connect the user and the borrower, or the investor and the borrower. And through this, moving, one set of centralized system to another centralized system was philosophically a challenge for me. But there's also a practical approach. And then the practical approach is the fact that, again, while these projects are going to be small in the beginning, the government bond market's a $120 trillion market. Putting that, of course, in small bite sizes, but on a private blockchain is going to have significant infrastructure investment issues. And why recreate something that is already functioning and take advantage of it? Of course, there is a misconception that public chain means, everyone has access to everything, but that's not the case. And I think there are definite technological safeguards that can happen that will allow for a safe, trusted network that can exist while taking advantage of the infrastructure that is already in place. One of the key advantages of the Liberty prototype, I would say, is the fact that it is a self-contained system that can really be dropped in any environment. And appreciating what Kenneth mentioned on CBDC, certainly works in CBDC environments, but also can work without CBDC and still replicate the atomic nature of direct DVP settlement. And again, there are many safeguards that are built into place to ensure that eligibility and access does not actually disadvantage anyone. And while eliminating room for human error, making sure that the safeguards are in there to ensure that systemic issues don't arise is all part of the Liberty prototype. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. So next we will turn to the second prototype, which has been provided by Digital Asset and GFT. And the second prototype is built on a private permission blockchain infrastructure. Let's first start again with a video that provides you with a high-level overview on the prototype that has been built by Digital Asset.
The Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub and the Hong Kong Monetary Authority have joined forces to deliver the next generation of tokenized asset infrastructure. This new digital infrastructure will not only offer greater efficiency and transparency across green investments in the Hong Kong market, it will also help issuers and governments meet their environmental and sustainability goals. To alleviate many of the complexities associated with green bond issuance and to demystify uncertainties surrounding green impact, BIS and HKMA launched Project Genesis, a green bond issuance prototype that utilizes digital assets' core technology offering, DAML. DAML is a multi-party application platform that uses smart contracts to simplify complex business processes while also making data more accessible. Through DAML, blockchain, and IoT, the Project Genesis prototype is able to share real-time data across the green bond lifecycle while eliminating duplicative processing.
Our first goal is to empower retail. We want to make possible investing in government green bonds in a simple way via an app that shows accrued interest and green impact in real time. Furthermore, we want to empower retail to own green bond finance projects in their neighborhood.
Our second goal is to foster achieving Hong Kong's green targets. The Hong Kong SAR government has set ambitious carbon emission reduction goals. Tapping retail to realize aspiring green projects helps Hong Kong to fulfill its climate obligations under the Paris Agreement.
Our third goal is to explore and foster a new financial ecosystem. Distributed ledger technology is becoming an important building block of future financial systems. Project Genesis helps familiarize market participants with this new technology architecture.
In addition to Allinfra's IoT platform, Project Genesis will leverage Octopus. Project Genesis demonstrates that digital assets residing on blockchain can enhance efficiency by shortening bond settlement from T+2 to near real time, while also connecting the segregated order books managed by multiple banks and brokers.
All right. So this is also a great piece of technology that has been delivered by Digital Asset and GFT. So Karen, Digital Asset is working on multiple DLT projects around the globe. How advanced is Hong Kong in terms of the DLT? And what needs to be done to foster further adoption? And on top of that question, can you also provide the key benefits that you see provided by your prototype?
Of course. It's always very exciting for me to talk about Hong Kong. And for DLT deployment, I'm very happy to share that Hong Kong is at the clear forefront for DLT production level of deployment. Just for digital asset, there are a few of the projects that we're working on involved in the city. And first, foremost, you probably know our work with Hong Kong Exchange, the multi-year project Synapse that is going to be going live early next year. So Project Synapse helps to close the settlement gap in between Hong Kong's T+2 and China's T+0. As Kenneth, you mentioned earlier about the shortening of settlement cycle, the world is moving to a shortened settlement cycle. The US is looking at cutting the settlement from 2 days to possibly over 1 day. And India also has come up with plans for T+1. And once Project Synapse goes live, we think the world will be looking to Hong Kong and the ecosystem that fosters around Hong Kong Exchange for the leading position in securities settlement. And also, besides Hong Kong Exchange, we are actively working with the banks and the custodians here in the city. HSBC and BNP Paribas and the other institutions are working with digital asset on a few initiatives, including digital bond issuance, as well as corporate action automation. And just yesterday, Goldman Sachs announced its plans for end-to-end tokenization platform. We are very proud that the engineering team driving the initiatives are based here in Hong Kong. And the head of digital asset engineering at Goldman Sachs is also going to speak very soon at the Hong Kong stage. From a solution provider's point of view, we see a very healthy drive from the institutions. The demand side is very strong from the institutions because they see the benefits of distributed straight-through processing and the efficiency gains associated with it. And from the supply side, we are also thinking there's a very healthy talent pool here in the city. From the time Digital Asset opened the office in Hong Kong 4.5 years ago till now, we have increased our headcount by 4 times. And it was not too much of a surprise that CoinDesk ranked Hong Kong very high in terms of the blockchain ecosystem. 5 universities in the city made it to the top 25. And I think it's worth a celebration for everyone here in Hong Kong for the good efforts you have put in. And of course, when it comes to driving further the ecosystem, production level of deployment is the key. And so that's why with Project Genesis and the research report that we are going to publish very soon together with BISIH and HKMA, we have done very thorough studies in terms of the efficiency gains and the cost benefits. In terms of the efficiency gains, we estimate that we can cut the time required for preparation and issuance by half, and the settlement can be theoretically close to real time. And in terms of the cost benefits, we estimate around 18 basis points for across the entire value chain. And that's around 9% of the yield that you're making from the government bond.
Thank you, Karen. So it's good to hear that Hong Kong is cutting edge in DLT. And so those were definitely some impressive efficiencies that you achieved using the Genesis prototype. Now, our third vendor team that participated in Project Genesis is Team Allinfra. They are the key providers for the technology that allows us to track green impact of the bond investment that is carried out, and that came up to some extent already in the videos. So before turning to a discussion with Dave, who is here on the camera, I will also provide you with a high-level overview of the technology that was used in Genesis in a short video.
The world is changing, and so is the global business landscape. Whether you're calculating your carbon footprint or recording your energy usage and production, you need the right tools to compete in today's market. But collecting and using your organization's climate-relevant data is complicated. Current manual processes are costly, time-consuming, open to error, and offer little transparency. What few people realize is that emerging technologies now offer powerful automated solutions that allow organizations to capture and store climate-relevant data in real time in a manner that's accurate, auditable, and adaptable across a wide range of use cases. Allinfra Climate is a blockchain-based environmental platform that helps institutions achieve their sustainability goals. Easy to implement and cost-effective, our platform is an end-to-end solution that ensures you have access to highly provenance data. It collects climate-relevant information from smart devices across your portfolio of assets, letting you build a repository of reliable, immutable data that can be used for a host of purposes. Whether you're seeking to calculate your carbon footprint, report environmental performance to stakeholders, undertake green financing, or even create environmental financial products in digital form, like renewable energy certificates or emission reductions. Drive your organization towards a greener future with Allinfra Climate.
All right, so when we had discussions on Project Genesis, then this green tracking technology was really one of the key elements that most interested parties are interested in. So, Dave, can you provide us with some more insights on this technology and where you see its main advantages?
Sure, thanks, Marcel. So, one of the biggest issues, and you alluded to it previously, in the environmental finance space is kind of reliability of data. So all of these products, environmental financial products, whether they're green bonds, renewable energy certificates, emission reductions, all of the value or a considerable amount of it is tied to the underlying data. And if that data is bad, if it's unreliable, if it can't be trusted by a third party, then there's a significant issue and it impacts the value of the instrument. So in this case, we're doing this prototype, we wanted a simple implementation to collect, store, and then make available the key data from the asset. So we have a simulated revenue grade power meter. We used our on-chain registry for asset and device registration, a cloud-based microservice to collect the data from that simulated IoT device, write it into storage, index it, and make it available via API. The way our technology works means that it can be used to take many data streams from one or many devices across a single asset or a portfolio of assets. It can take physical reports, it can take data, metadata, recorded or recorded or referenced on chain. And this leads you to a very high-grade repository of asset level data that can then be relied upon by stakeholders, right? Whether it's internal or external reporting, or whether it's tying it to a financial product like we did here. And so from a green bond issuer's perspective, what you want to do is prove the use of proceeds, show that the asset that you financed is operating as you expected, and show the environmental impact. Now, one of the issues in doing this in a traditional way is it's time consuming, it's prone to human error, and you lose the timeliness of data, so you can't have real-time data. Maybe you can go and collect that data from meters, but you're not going to be doing that every 5 minutes or every day. Our technology, when it's combined with IoT devices, solves a lot of those problems, right? We collect the data directly from the device, or as close to the device as we can. There's no third-party interaction, if you like. It's done in a verifiable manner. It's stored in an immutable or tamper-proof way. It can be accessed by permission parties. So all in all, it provides the asset owner and investors with timely, reliable data that's been captured and stored in a cost-efficient manner. And we think it's a game-changing technology for this space. There's been a lot of focus globally on the reliability of data that underlies environmental products. And we think that blockchain is a great way to provide a solution. It's a very good use case for blockchain technology.
Thank you, Dave. So this is the third party which has contributed to Project Genesis, also using DLT technology to generate very granular, high-quality, verifiable data. Now, let's turn to a question to my whole panel again, which is related to yesterday's press release by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. So the HKMA yesterday came out with a press release mentioning Project Genesis relatively high on top. And when I read that the HKMA is considering doing a pilot, my heart made a little leap. So the question I have to my panelists is, what needs to be done to move Genesis from prototype into production? Let's start with Karen.
Oh, I think my heart is bumping now. So from digital assets point of view, like through the experiences we're working on production level of deployments, we think there are at least 3 issues to consider. First of all, regulation, whether there is any regulation that is required to be changed. And secondly, it's a full-scale requirement gathering again for production level build. Third point is about integration. Not every stakeholder, not every party needs to be jumping onto a DLT infrastructure all at the same time. So let's start with regulation first. Kenneth's territory, so not only HKMA, we also need to look at Securities Futures Commission. So that's why I think through the 3.5 months of product development from digital asset and GFT side, we used at least 1 month to exclusively focus and to understand the workflow that are going on in today's Hong Kong retail bond issuance and trading. So that 1 month of requirement gathering allows us to build a system and a prototype into the prototype that doesn't require any regulation change from either HKMA or SFC as we understand. We didn't dismeteriorate any banks, any brokers. Each of the parties are still taking on the roles and the steps they're working today, but on a much more efficient and cost-saving basis. The second point is about full-scale requirement and exception handling. Anyone who has done production-level deployment probably know that there is a great difference in terms of POC and production build. So for this POC, we haven't taken into consideration of exception handling. So what if anything went wrong, can go wrong into each of the steps, which is needed to be mapped out for production build. And the third point is about integration. During our prototype design, and is included into the technical research report we are releasing soon, is our design, integration design with 3 key parties. One is with the payment rail in Hong Kong, the fast FPS system in the city. And second is we worked very closely with Allinfra to capture real-time green data into the tokenized platform. And the third one is with Octopus. So we want to demonstrate that we don't need to develop a new app, but we can utilize an application that is widely used in the city already, and through API integration can already get the investor the benefits of using only a few clicks to look at the green impact of your own investment. But for a production build, we think there are a lot more integration to be considered with HKMA on the central money markets units, which is the golden source of ownership record of bond trading in Hong Kong. And with the placing institutions, possibly with their core banking and the inventory management system. So there's a lot more issues to be considered. We wouldn't say it's an easy job.
Yes, I can definitely second this part on regulation. So while we were setting up the prototypes for Project Genesis, we had this advisory panel, and we also had some legal counsel inside, some pro bono legal firms, Clifford Chance and Kingwood Mullisons, that were advising us, could there be secondary market trading on the blockchain utility, and or is this not covered by the SFC? And this really turned out to be an area which really needs a lot of consideration. So I see that also in your response. Next, let's turn to Dave. Dave, so what do you think needs to be done to move Genesis from prototype into production?
So for us, if we were reporting on a real live asset, we want to make sure that the data feed comes from multiple underlying data sources. And so obviously that would depend on where the use of proceeds of the bond or financing is going to go. But we'd want to have primary data sources and secondary data sources and so forth, and then determine the intervals and the sort of granularity that is going to be displayed to the investor. So there needs to be some more thinking about that, and that can obviously get very complex depending on the asset. But that's what we need to do if we were going into production here.
All right, thank you, Dave. Next, Kenneth.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Karen and Dave have already said. I just want to add one point, which probably is more relevant to us potentially as a public issue, which is inclusiveness. As we all know, DLT is a pretty cutting-edge technology, and to use that to buy and subscribe for and actually need some knowledge as well as some quote-unquote equipment. And not everybody has that, and those that don't have it are probably those that we want to engage and involve the most, the part of the society that probably would be the most interested in this kind of investment. So I'm not saying that we have to wait until everybody is ready before we can deploy, but it does mean that we need to find a way to involve them in an alternative way, potentially.
All right. Yes, that's definitely also an angle that needs consideration, this inclusivity. Which then brings me to Aaron. What do you think needs to be done to go live with the prototype?
The courage to break a few eggs to make an omelet. I certainly think that, well, first of all, from a liberty standpoint, I think I've spent 20 years in bond origination, so it is a space that I understand relatively well. And the reason why the Liberty prototype was built in that architecture is deliberate, to ensure that it can stand on its own 2 feet, so to speak, to be inherently production ready. That does mean that the regular processes that pre-existed will need to be rethunk, and a little bit of leap of faith is involved in ensuring that the technology can be trusted, and that is kind of the courage that is necessary for production to take place. I think the technology is there. The methods to ensure that we remain compliant is absolutely built in. The aspects of inclusivity is also quite paramount and very philosophically ingrained within Liberty. It's just a few steps to get it going, but it does require a little bit of out-of-the-box thinking and that leap of faith for it to move into production, in my view.
I see. Thank you, Aaron. So again, regulation, the importance of regulation in this field is showing out there. All right, so we are coming towards the end of this panel. I would like to thank my panelists for having participated and the audience for having been here. If you have further interest in Genesis, it is showcased in 3 booths here at the Hong Kong FinTech Week, and there will be a press release, or there has already been a press release at 3 from the BIS with a publication of the 2 tech reports for the 2 prototypes that have been built. Thanks a lot, and have a nice afternoon.
Digital Asset is also doing, together with GFT, a real-life end-to-end demo at our booth right after this panel. And we welcome you to visit our booth our booth number is 61.
All right, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.